Hello to all our friends out there from the Financial Advisory Group. We just wanted to reach out and touch base again as the year continues to get off to a pretty rough start as we're now into the second week of May. And what has been, we thought it might be turbulent, but to be honest, this has been even a little bit more turbulent than we thought it would be coming into the year. So we just wanted to reach out and give you an update on some of our thoughts. First off, we did think this year would be a tough year. We thought coming into the year that there were a couple signs that made it look like it would be rough coming into the year, and that we thought by the end of the year, things would start looking better. That's still our basic thought. Yes, the start to the year has been rougher than we thought. April was a pretty tough month across the board. But in our view, it's time to just continue to follow our plan and not come up with any sort of knee-jerk reaction at this point in time. Because again, to us, unfortunately, this is just part of investing, right? The best analogy I can come up with is right now, it's like pushing a ball underwater. You push that ball down, there's a lot of pressure on this ball, or the market, if you would, being caused by a lot of different things going on in the world right now, right? You have China shutting down again because of COVID, which of course won't really help supply chains at this point in time. You have the Federal Reserve raising rates, trying to fight inflation. And inflation that is at the highest level we've seen it in 40 or 50 years. And the Fed is doing what they can, or trying to do what they can to combat that inflation. At the same time, you have the Russia-Ukraine situation, which continues to change on a daily basis. And on top of that, we're in a midterm election year, which the market tends to be volatile in any way until you get later into the year. So our view is that I really look at it as though that ball that's being pushed down underwater, and all of those things are weighing on it at this point in time. But at some point, those pressures get relieved. And when those pressures get relieved, just picture that ball comes popping back up out of the water. And we want to make sure we're in a good position for when that happens, right? When that ball is down underwater, it feels like the world is ending, right? It feels like it's never going to get better. You turn on the TV and all you're going to hear is about inflation and higher egg prices, and you name it, we're being told things are higher. We know they're higher, right? Because we're paying for them. But remember, as that pressure gets let up, as the Fed gets the rates rise, as the Fed raises rates, as inflation eventually starts subsiding, we'll show you a sign that there are a couple little signs of that happening right now in front of us. We do think we want to make sure we're in the right position for when this ball does pop back up. So I heard a great thing over the weekend, right? When we're growing up, our parents will come in and tell us, hey, don't just sit there, do something. From an investment world today, we have the opposite philosophy. Don't just do something, sit there. It's okay, right? We don't need to feel like we need to do something. Right now, sitting tight for the most part is the right idea. A couple different things, and then we'll go through some charts. Our thought right now is stick to our plan, right? We came into the year thinking it would be volatile. For those who are taking income, we do have enough income set aside to get us through, as always, a 12 to 18 month reserve. So we're not forced to sell anything we don't want to right now, right? The other thing, this gives us an opportunity to lock in some tax losses, right? 2020 and 2021 created some taxable situations for us, and a lot of us were hit with capital gains in those years. So far this year, we've been able to take advantage and lock in some losses for us in 2022. And last, we're always looking for opportunities. Is there something out there that we can take advantage of when situations like this, like they did in 2020, present themselves? So we know it's bumpy. We know this hasn't been fun, but hang in there for right now. When we look at big picture and sort of look at this, just to show you, right, this is part of investing, right? We hate saying it, but it's part of the game, right? And if you look back through history, this looks back over the last 80 years, give or take. Bull and bear markets fight back and forth all the time. The thing that you'll notice is the bull markets tend to last longer, but the bear markets are painful. It's what we remember the most, right? So if you look back through history, the average bull market lasts about that 4.5 year time period. The average bear market can last up to a year, right? So again, we're not technically in a bear market yet, but it certainly feels like it. But just keep in mind, this is how markets work, right? We do have the both, right? Unfortunately, you get the good and the bad. If you look forward, though, the good tends to happen more than the bad, right? You just need to make sure you're there for it. This gives the percentage of times that the market is positive over different time periods. So if we look at the far left over here, on average, about half of the time the market's up on any given day, about half of the time it's down. Those aren't the best odds, right? But if we look out over time, like we are today with you when we meet with you, we still look at returns over the last 3 to 5 years that still look pretty darn good, right? And when we're given the opportunity, we need to remember, yes, we want to get those 5, 6, 7, 8% rates of return. But in order to do that, we have to weather times like this, right? So if we look over at 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year timeframes, the market is positive 70, 80, 90% of the time over those timeframes. We need to make sure we get through this, and then we can take advantage of that. If we also look through to sort of continue that theme, this is the markets over the last 80 years and how they do year by year. If you look, about 70% of the time, we get a positive year. The years are all over the place, right? From up 0 to 7% to anything where we see those big up years, which are up over 28%. But there were 25 negative years out of the last 100 or so. Those are not fun. They're not enjoyable. The average down year is about 13, 14%, which is where we are right now. Again, this is normal. This happens. It just doesn't feel good, right? But what we'll see, there's a lot more blue on here than there is red. If we turn forward to, I'm sure you've all heard it on the news and seen it in your statements, that this has, through April, was I think the third worst start the market has had in history, right? So that's the bad news. The good news is what happens after that. After that, typically you're set up for good returns. Just like March of 2020, the market had one of the worst months we've ever seen. And then voila, 2 years later, we were set up with great returns for the next 2 years. So unfortunately, that pain tends to bring on the gain, right? The pain brings on the gain. That was our theme for 2020. It was no pain, no gain. It seems like a similar situation in 2022. So if you look normally, the recovery after one of these down periods to start the year through April, the average return for the rest of the year was about a 10% rate of return. So again, I think historically this has happened before, and we do think things will get better, but we're not saying they're going to get better tomorrow, right? So let's just grind through and make sure we don't make any mistakes at this point in time. A couple different points to look at too, and this can be a good thing. If you actually look, when consumer confidence is lowest, which is where it is right now, right? Our consumer confidence is not very high, mainly because of inflation and mainly because of the market, right? This doesn't make us very confident. Historically, when consumer confidence is low, the market returns are actually better, right? We always see this, right? Whenever we feel really bad about the market, that usually means it's a time to buy. Whenever we feel really good about the market and excited about it, it's usually a time to sell, right? So as we feel worse and worse about this market, we need to make sure we hold on tight, because we need to take advantage. When that pressure's left off this ball, we need to be there to take advantage of the growth we do see coming forward. So we can see right now, consumer confidence is low, but historically, if you look at the 8 times that consumer confidence was lowest, the forward return was about 25%. Last but not least, as we said, we look at something here that shows some things are turning over. The used car index is starting to show signs of decreasing, right? A good sign that some of the supply chain pressures around the world are starting to ease. And now this crazy car market can start maybe calming down a little bit, right? So you're starting to see some of this change in front of our eyes. So again, we just wanted to send out a message saying we're here, right? We know this is not fun. April was a very painful month as the first start to the year, when it's the third worst start ever. That's not fun to grind through. But remember, and we said a lot of this in March of 2020, right now, we're not thinking in 3-month increments. We're thinking in 3-year increments. And if we see an opportunity, we want to make sure we're making the right decision for 3 years from now, not for 3 months from now, right? And sometimes that's a very hard thing to do, but that's what our goal is right now. So keep in mind, we don't want to just do something. We want to sit there right now, right? So let's make sure we're there when that ball is, the pressure's relieved off. It won't happen tomorrow, right? The message we've been given to some is just sort of sit back, enjoy the spring and summer. It's actually sunny out today. We haven't had many of those days recently, and let us worry about this and make the decisions to help you get through this. We're here for you now, and we'll be here for you in the future. The last thing, as I always tend to end with something a little bit on the corny side. Growing up, One of the TV shows my mom did not like us watching at the house was a show called Married with Children, with the Bundy family. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with it. Most people don't have a very good feeling about the show. It wasn't the most, let's say, appropriate show for kids to be watching. The theme song to that, though, I found out, was actually written and sang by Frank Sinatra. Didn't know that before I did some research into this, but the lyrics go, love and marriage, they go together like a horse and carriage. This, I tell you, brother, you can't have one without the other. Why am I talking about Married with Children? Well, it's investing in volatility, right? Investing in volatility, they go together like a horse and carriage. This, I tell you, clients, you can't have one without the other, right? So you need, unfortunately, part of investing is taking on that volatility, right? And getting through times like this. And what we get as a reward is that 5, 6, 7, 8% rate of return, but we have to make good decisions to get through that time period. So we'll look at Frank Sinatra here and try to take his advice and know that these things go together. We may not like it, but investing and volatility go together. And again, if we stick together, we think we'll make it through this. We know it's not fun. We're here for you. If you have questions, concerns, please reach out. We'll keep communicating. And if we see opportunities, we will take advantage. And our message to you is just go out and enjoy spring and summer as much as possible. You know, markets are volatile. We can't control them. Let's just make sure we make good decisions together, and we'll make it through this one. And unfortunately, we'll have to make it through others in the future as well. Thanks again. We look forward to seeing you sometime soon. Enjoy the weather and make it a great day.